and welcome to another special edition of The Portal. I am your host, Stephen Jolley. I do apologize if my voice sounds weird on this video. I have had a cold. My 3-year-old got sick, and man, it has been a rough one. So, I didn't want to miss it because there's been some changes finally. Last week wasn't a lot of changes to the first playoff prediction I put out, but this week we have some movement. And as the next couple weeks progress, we're really going to see a lot of distance being put between certain teams and have more of a clearer path as to who's going to be going to the playoffs. Now, start with the teams that are the first 4 out. Now going forward, I have a better idea of what teams are going to be battling for that final spot. So now we'll start talking about some of the teams that get left out. This time I left Oregon out due to the fact that they had 2 losses, but with their schedule, the 2 losses that they would have would be to the same team, and it would thus eliminate them because their strength of schedule would not be better than some of the teams I put in. The other teams I put in would actually have a little better quality win than what Oregon would have, and that's just the edge needed to get them in. Penn State, I think that they, once again are in a situation where they're not going to have enough quality wins outside of the games they lose. So, the only thing that can benefit those 2 teams is if this is a committee of 12 that does like last year, where their quality of losses seem to carry more weight than the quality of wins. So, if that's the case, then, it would be a battle of which one of these teams played and lost to some of the better teams on a more consistent basis to jump one of the other teams that are in. Now, when it comes to Kansas State and Miami, I think both of these 2 teams being the first 4 out is because they're both going to lose in their conference championship game. Both of these teams, I think, will be their second loss, and Miami, especially their schedule being very soft. Kansas State being the Big 12, their schedule not being as good as compared to an SEC or Big 10 team, is going to be something where both of those teams, because of that second loss coming in the conference championship game, they get eliminated right there in the last week from making the playoffs. So right now the predictive model have them going that far, but unfortunately you will still come up just short. Now when it comes to the group of 12 team and who takes that 12th spot, there's a couple of teams on this list. I took Liberty at the beginning of the year. I think that they have a very strong chance of being that team from the group of 5 that ends up being the representative after an undefeated season. However, you have other teams that still have a really good shot. James Madison is another one with a huge win over North Carolina. They have definitely given themselves a huge quality win against a Power 5 opponent, which puts you in that situation where you would have the edge over Liberty if y'all both went undefeated. But there's another team out there in UNLV. Now, UNLV's been in the news this week because we've all heard about their starting quarterback deciding to opt out and redshirt himself over NIL. And because of that, was UNLV's chances of going undefeated gone? And we look at it, and they came out and played just as good, if not better, with the other quarterback. So UNLV is in a prime position where if the backup could play just as good as the starter, and they continue to play well throughout these next couple games, they have a schedule to where they play 3 more Power 5 teams. 2 more Power 5 teams and a Boise State team. Those are 3 quality games for them. I think those are very big games for them. And if they could win at least 2 out of those 3 games, I feel like even as a 1-loss team, UNLV would have the most impressive resume out of all the group of 5 teams and be the 12th team in. But as you can see from the graphic I posted, I went with James Madison for now because right now they have cemented that win. And without the question at quarterback, I do like James Madison as a front runner right now. But that being said, over the next couple weeks, UNLV has a chance to prove me wrong. But right now, James Madison will be the group of 5 winner. Number 11, we're going to have USC. USC is 14th in the country against the pass. Now, this is a defense that has struggled over the last couple of years. It's one of the things we talked about with Lincoln Riley. They just have not looked good defensively, so it's been hard to see them progress as a team. Well, that has been the difference this year, is that their defense is actually playing extremely well, which gives this USC team a chance to run the table now after the Michigan loss. They don't have anybody else really on the schedule they should lose to. They should win every single one of the games left on their schedule. If they do that, I have them going to the Big Ten championship game. Unfortunately, I don't think they can beat Ohio State. I have them losing to Ohio State, which barely puts them in the playoffs. I think they get the nod over some of the first four out just because they would still have some good quality wins in there. Like Penn State would be a better quality win than what Oregon would have on their schedule left. And I think it's still better than something Miami or Kansas State could do. So USC barely squeezes in because of that. Now, number 10 in the playoffs is somebody that I find very interesting, and I've been watching them so far this year. And this, with their schedule, they have a really good chance at shocking everybody. And that is Indiana. Indiana is the 10th person in the playoffs, and this team is 11th in the country in scoring points per game. They're averaging about 42 points per game, which is 21 points better than they were last year. And their head coach, curent, is the real deal. He is one of the top coaches from these smaller programs that has now stepped up to a Power 5 school, and he has never had a losing record on any team he's ever coached. I mean, it doesn't matter if he's taken over teams with losing records. He's never had a losing record himself. He's a proven winner. This is a head coach that has completely changed his program. And it's not just offensively. Defensively, we always knew Indiana was pretty good. And he has definitely influenced them as well there. They're 17th in the country against the run, and they're 25th in the country against the pass. This is an extremely well-coached program. And you can see that right now he has them on a trajectory where if you look at their schedule, their toughest games are going to be clumped right at the end of the schedule. They'll be 8-0 when they go into a road test at Michigan State with a defense that could challenge them. Could be a possible upset, especially with it being the week before Michigan. They play Michigan at home. So if they win those two games, I really can only see them losing to Ohio State on the road. And if they do that, that's a perfect chance for them to only have one loss on the year. And with the way that Predictive Bundle done it, that would put them in a tie with USC, which I think USC would be higher in the rankings if that was the case. The rankings would like them more. And because of that, Indiana would coast into the playoffs because they didn't have to go play in the Big Ten championship game. So it'd actually be their advantage. They end up in a tiebreaker that way because then they could just coast into the playoffs without having to play in the Big Ten title. Now, the next team up on the list is going to be Ole Miss. Yes, I know they just lost to Kentucky, and this is what we're used to seeing with Lane Kiffin. Questionable coaching calls throughout the game. His offense disappearing when they play a strong defense. And we've seen this a lot when it comes to some of the bigger matchups. I feel like Jackson Dart still hasn't found a way where he's playing a team that challenges him defensively. He has yet to find a way to come over that hurdle and be able to get Ole Miss to the next level. Luckily, they still have a lot of season left to determine this and get better at it. Now, one thing they can hang their hat on is they are number 3 in the country against the run. They do a great job defensively at stopping other people from just running the football on them. So because of that, they are able to maybe provide more pressure with that D-line as well to try and help with the pass game. But right now, they are struggling and giving up a lot of passing yards, a lot more than what you expect from this Ole Miss team, especially what they've done the last couple years. So Ole Miss, I have them just barely hanging in here right now at number 9 because if they lose one of the games, I don't expect them to lose on their schedule. then we pretty much have to limit them, or go ahead and eliminate them from the playoffs. I don't know how other way you could say it, other than the fact you have to, they have to win that game at Georgia at the end of the year. I think that's one that they can steal, and if they steal that game, that puts them into the playoffs. So for them, that's going to be a huge game. Looking at their schedule, after that, they don't have anybody else to play. So if they come into that game, with that game being the only one they need to win to possibly make the playoffs, I like their chances of winning that game. So when we come to that, we'll talk about the next team, number 8, Georgia. Now, I think Georgia ends up coming in as the 8 seed just because I think Georgia, even if they lose to Ole Miss, they have some very tough games on their schedule. And they would be, to me, the best 2-loss team. And I can see the polls still putting Georgia over Ole Miss, even though Ole Miss would have beat them, just because of Georgia's schedule. This team will have played an impressive schedule. And if they make the playoffs, even as a 3-loss team, they might make the playoffs over other teams. I mean, you're hearing it here first. Get ready for the committee, because the way the committee showed us last year, and where we've seen the committee adjust to, we've seen the fact that when the committee does that there's a good chance that Georgia would end up being in the playoffs, even as a 3-loss team, just because of how strong their schedule is and how many top teams they're going to play. Like, all of them could already be playoff teams themselves, or teams that are vying for a playoff spot. So the fact that they have that on their schedule really helps Georgia out. I think that Georgia is still a solid playoff team. Number 7, I have Arizona. Just like Indiana, Arizona will benefit. Looking at their schedule, they should win out. Not saying they will, but they should. Look at their schedule, what they have left to play. They have played their toughest games. Now you should win out. Go in with only 1 loss. And the current prediction model that we have has it to where if they're at 1 loss, so is Kansas State. We already said Kansas State loses in the Big 12 title game, which knocks them out of the playoffs. Arizona benefits from not playing in the title game and gets to slide into the playoffs. And that's going to be an interesting factor, because I really believe this strongly will happen. There's people out there who probably argue this, like, no, the team that, even though they lost their conference championship game, will still get in over that team that was behind them. I don't think that's going to be the factor. I think that with the 12-team playoff system now, the playoff committee is going to look at it as, well, this team couldn't beat this team. Or some of these cases, it's going to be the same team losing to the same team twice. And if you've lost to them for the second time in your conference championship game, they're probably not going to let you advance into the playoffs. You've already shown you can't beat one of the teams in the playoffs multiple times. They're going to want to give somebody else a chance. So I really feel like this is going to affect other teams when it comes to losing in your title game. Your title game is going to be like an extra playoff spot. And if you don't win it, you could be eliminated just by not winning it. Now, having said that, for some teams, it's a benefit. Like number 6, Tennessee. Tennessee benefits from the fact that they play in the SEC. And I have them playing Alabama in the SEC title game. It'll be a rematch because I have Tennessee upsetting Alabama during the regular season in a game at home. But I have Tennessee continuing to struggle on the road in big SEC games. And they struggle against Georgia, and they'll lose that game. But due to their record, they will be the best team to go play Alabama in the SEC title game, and Alabama will beat them. Now, this is a case where, though, because of the SEC, the way it's built, you still have to put Tennessee up there because that is a quality loss. I strongly believe that that's a quality loss. And then Alabama, of course, being the SEC champion at that point, we know where they would finish. But number 5, I have Texas. Texas is going to be at the 5th spot because, again, I feel like there's going to be some tie situations in some of these conferences, and that's going to determine who goes and plays for the title game. Texas will benefit from that. and get a higher seed because they will have less losses on their schedule, and they will have not had to play in the conference championship game. So now they're one of the better teams sliding in because they didn't take that extra loss. And their resume itself, if you look at their schedule, they will build enough impressive wins that you have to say they deserve to take the 5th spot. And next would be, going over our top 4 who are the conference winners. Well, number 4, Utah. I've dropped the Big 12 champ down to that level because I don't think the Big 12 champion is going to be able to beat some of these teams if they advance towards them. I put Clemson at number 3 because what they've shown the last 2 weeks is that they actually can be consistent for a change. And that is something we haven't seen from Clemson in a long time, since they've had these struggles and haven't competed for a national title. It's been because of inconsistency, especially at wide receiver. And so when I've watched them play the last 2 weeks, it's been really impressive to see that they're not as inconsistent as what we've seen over the last couple of years. And that could be the difference for Clemson. They continue to show they can be consistent every week on offense with the wide receiving core. This is a dangerous team that can continue to move up. Number 2, I have Alabama. I have Alabama, like I said, getting upset by Tennessee in the regular season, but they go on to win the SEC and they're only a 1-loss team. The only reason they're not number 1 is because Ohio State will go undefeated. I don't see anybody on their schedule that will beat them. They will continue to win games based off of the way they're built, which is run the football, play good defense. That's all they have to do. And they have a 2-headed monster in the run game. And it is going to only get worse as the season goes on. And they have more and more time to build on this running attack. I think that Ohio State is definitely a danger. And it's going to be an interesting matchup if you could end up getting Ohio State and Alabama playing each other late in these playoffs. Because if this scenario was to happen, and these two teams would be the most fun to watch play. I mean, you'd have, Ryan Williams on one side, you'd have Jeremiah Smith on the other. I mean, that would be a lot of talent, and man, the storyline for that build-up in that game between those two for a national title would be fun. I mean, these playoffs in general, if you look at this bracket, tell me this would not be a fun bracket to watch and to see what would happen this year. So this is my prediction as of this week. We'll continue to do this every week and continue to predict how far these teams will go. So I thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you know when they continue to put out more content, especially the playoff predictions. We'll have some more reactions coming in the future. And I hope to see you guys on the other side of the portal.
Skype here.